in this house, the most dire, horrible events took place.
You are not content with the stories somebody's lives come. Be my victim.
Through watching scenes of violence, through watching scenes of transgression, through watching scenes of horror. There's an enormous amount of sort of abattoir of excess.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
First time hearing that this year. I love it.
It's my favourite of the two, I have to admit.
Yeah. I'm fond of it too, mostly because I don't get an automatic copyright strike every time I use it.
Yeah, that does help.
Don't you love being a YouTuber? Hello, folks. Happy New Year. A bit late saying it. I hope you're well. This is Proper Horror Show. It's for horror fans who like Mauler but have ADHD. I hope this is a... I was battling what one of those should I use, and I thought let's go with that one. Let's go with a Mauler reference.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, I'm a quarter Mauler at the moment. I do an hour and 40-minute reviews when I do them.
I mean, it is a comparison to make, isn't it? If you have to say that someone with ADHD who watches this stream.
I'm working everyone up there. We'll do the 3-hour specials eventually.
Yeah. Oh, we've done it before.
Oh, we'll do it deliberately, you know.
Ah, okay.
Not just trying to slog through the absolute pain that was Army of the Dead.
I was going to say Army of the Dead. That's the one that springs to mind.
Oh, if Super Nanny hadn't come in and rescued us, that would have been a 4.5-hour stream. But oh my goodness,
how on earth could we make that bloody stream of all streams 3.5 hours or whatever it was?
Oh, gosh. Anyway, folks,
ripping it apart.
So, well, what you're about to see is a nightmare, folks. For me, anyway. There's so much to cover. I'm wondering how are we going to get it all in. We're doing 4 episodes if we can. And to do that, I am bringing, of course, that crime guy. Got it, as always.
It's been a while, isn't it?
I know. We enjoyed a nice Christmas break.
We certainly did. Yeah, it was a nice little break, but back to work now. Back to work.
Oh, you are definitely back to work. You've been busy. You've been pumping out the cases, haven't you? Not just Marianne Bachmeier, but
No.
you got another quick one out as well.
Yes. So if you guys aren't already subscribed to my channel, what the hell are you doing? Get over there now. That crime guy. I actually covered a recent one that happened on January the 6th. No, it's not capital. It wasn't the capital. Although
Not
I
a
do
capital punishment.
No, not one of those. But it was a school shooting video. But the shooter was a 6-year-old child, and it was intentional. But fortunately, the teacher who was shot, it looks like she's going to pull through. So good on her. Yeah, quite a little heroic tale for her, and it's quite a hot button topic. So I thought I'd jump on that. But no, you're right. I have been busy. I'm all over the place now. Over Christmas, I set myself up on Instagram. I've set up a blooming TikTok for my sins and dabbling in the short scene. It's been active. So, yes.
If you start posting dance videos, TCG,
that's not happening. That's not happening.
Good. This stream has standards, you know.
Yeah, don't worry. I aim to maintain.
Brilliant. And also Murgoot, and welcome to the stream, Murgoot. Second time appearing, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. How's everybody doing? And
Is all he
Lots
calls
of
to kick me.
regulars in chat.
That's what he calls to kick me. Look, man. All right, I go where the attention is. Okay.
Yeah, like the Tom and Jerry kids, TCG is where the action is.
Exactly.
Now, Murgoot, I asked you on not just because it was good last time we had you on, but I had a bit of a problem deciding how we were going to do this, and that problem is effectively there are so many Twilight Zone episodes in the original run, so many. So I'm afraid to say I mean I'm not proud of this, folks. But between you and me, I'll admit it. I turned to democracy, and I asked people what they wanted covered, and Murgoot came out with some absolutely fantastic suggestions, and I think I realised you're a bit of a fan.
Have been for a long time. I first saw Twilight Zone my first memory of the Twilight Zone was when I was 4 years old. I snuck downstairs to see what my dad was watching at midnight, and it freaked me out because he was watching Twilight Zone, Eye of the Beholder, and shot needles and the reveal of the doctor's face, and I squeaked, and my dad caught me and gave me a good paddling and sent me back to my room.
That's a paddling. Yeah. Oh gosh. Eye of the Beholder is a classic. I think you recommended that one, didn't you?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It stuck with me for 47 years?
Yeah, it's one of the all-time classic episodes. And I'll just say this now. There were so darn many of them. It was the toughest choice. Actually, it was really lovely. Loads of people gave me suggestions on YouTube, on Twitter. So I had a large number to choose from, which was fantastic. So I'm actually, I'm bound to pressure a bit. We're going to do a bonus stream. There's going to be a bonus stream for channel members where we'll talk about some additional episodes. But for the moment, I will focus on what we're going to cover tonight. So as I put out in the announcements, we are going to be covering the first season episode, The Fear, the third season episodes, Nothing in the Dark and It's a Good Life. And if we are efficient, we will hopefully cover The Obsolete Man as well. And I really hope we're efficient because that was an absolute banger. Oh, hang on. Murgoot, is this true?
No.
Oh. John Garris, maybe you're thinking of Mitch. I've recruited Mitch to be my Jordan a few times. Okay. Now, before I get into this, I'm so concerned that we have time for this. I will be very quick on horror anthology origins. What on earth what mean? Horror anthologies. So these are just collections of shorter stories combined together into a whole. This is a very long-running tradition. And with the Twilight Zone starting in 1959, we are not starting at the beginning. Next week's show is going to be on Dead of Night, which was made by Ealing Studios in 1945. That is not the beginning of horror anthologies. The earliest one that I could find is actually German, and that was Waxworks from 1924 in German, Wachsfigurenkabinette. So I figured that might be a little obscure for you. There is also a slightly earlier one from 1943, Flesh and Fantasy, that has Barbara Stanwyck in it. That would kind of appeal to me. But we're going with 1945 for the earliest one that we're going to cover. Now, why did these happen? Why did these happen? Oh my gosh, the grammar has broken.
Me no speak English.
Oh, ein bisschen Deutsch, and then my English breaks completely. Okay, why do we have so many horror anthologies? Well, two reasons. One, source material. So many horror writers have their start doing short stories. So there is an absolute abundance of short stories. Some of the best known writers from the time only did short versions, and novels are rare. So we're talking H.P. Lovecraft, all about the short story. Edgar Allan Poe, short stories. Algernon Blackwood, short stories. M.R. James, same thing. So short stories is where horror is at. There was an
Robert
absolute
Bloch.
abundant. Oh, Robert Bloch, did you say?
Yes.
Oh,
He
yeah,
was part of
fantastic show.
Lovecraft Circle.
Oh, yes.
Frank
What?
Belknap Long,
Mm,
Ramsey Campbell as a later one. He
mm,
started in short stories and went to long form.
mm. And of course, by the time you're making these movies, a heck of a lot of them are in the public domain or cheap. So the final one we're covering this month is going to be Edgar Allan Poe's stories compiled in Tales of Terror, because Roger Corman wanted cheap material to adapt. Bless him. We'll talk more about Roger Corman. So there is a lot of material available. And the other advantage, you want to have a recognizable star in your movie, right? Well, recognizable stars, they're a bit expensive. But what if you can tell your recognizable star that you can get everything they need to do in 2 days? How did you get Sean Connery in Highlander? Why, you give him $1 million and you tell him you'll film everything in 1 week. How'd you get Christopher Lee in No, wrong one. Christopher Lee in The House That Dripped Blood? You tell him you'll film all his scenes in 1 day. And also House That Dripped Blood, all on Robert Bloch stories. We will cover that. I'll just answer this question because it's very timely. Fez, we are doing that in the second anthology arc. That is looking like we'll do that in April. But we've got a little bit of a gap. So I'll give you a little outline. We're going to do anthologies a lot this year because they're amazing. I'm very biased. I love them. And they span from the beginning of horror all the way to what we're watching now. And one particular series has been there basically the whole time. And it's the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone keeps coming back. We're looking at the original series tonight, but it got revived in the 80s. It got revived in the early 2000s. It had a movie in the 80s, and it was revived again and handed over to Jordan Peele in the late 2010s. We're going to look at...
Right?
Sorry?
2019, right?
2019, yeah. So we are going to look at all of that, and it's going to be... I think it's going to be amazing. Well, Jordan Peele, I don't know. We're taking a gamble. I have not seen it, but I'm interested. So there's a bit of a gap there, you'll notice, between the 1959 to 64 run of the original series and when it's revived in the 80s. And in the middle of that, that's where we have an absolute explosion of Hammer Horror Productions, Amicus Productions, and another one that has slipped out of my brain at the worst moment possible. How dare it? We'll get it back. I'll remember what it was. Damn you, brain. So, yeah, we'll get to that then. So we're in for I'm going to spread this out over the year. Okay? I'm going to spread it out, but you guys are going to learn a lot and hopefully you'll love it. So, without further adieu, darn it. Why am I the speaking one on this? Adieu? We'll do with it. All right. Without further ado, we will get into our first episode. And this was suggested by friend of the channel, Shrouded Hand, who I think possibly had a mischievous wink in his eye when he suggested this one. Sorry, season 1 episode, The Fever.
It was episode 17, wasn't it?
It was indeed. It was indeed. And I need to find my darn image of it. Oh, I've got a lot of images from this. Hello.
If you guys in the chat didn't realize already, we don't rehearse these streams beforehand. It's all on the fly.
I'm just noticing Victoria has very good taste. We love a Poe stream here. And I'm glad there is enthusiasm. This is fantastic. I'm so glad you guys are into this. All right. Lovely. So, starting up with a fever, I will lean on Murgoot for the summary. Murgoot, would you like to take it away?
Certainly. Wife and her husband win a weekend trip to a casino. He's anti-gambling. He dissuades her. He upsets her. And then he decides to try out the $10,000 winner machine and gets addicted to it and ends up spending his last dollar where the machine refuses to crank on it. And they take him up to his room to rest after he has a breakdown. And he's hallucinating about the slot machine chasing him around, and he defenestrates himself. And the last scene is the slot machine smiling at him and dropping his last dollar right in front of the dead body.
It is the classic Twilight Zone twist, that bitter bit of irony. One of the episodes you people probably know about, and it's certainly one of the first I knew about, was an episode called Time Enough at Last, where a man who wants nothing more than to be left alone to read finds himself... Burgess Meredith again. It's this thing I love. These shows always recycle their actors. They're worse than Star Trek for the old actor recycling, and they don't even put a bunch of latex on them. I'm not sure I want to see Burgess Meredith in latex. Please don't Google that. Yes, Burgess Meredith wants nothing more than to be left alone to read, and then finds himself the only survivor of a nuclear attack, and then promptly breaks his glasses. It's a bitter kind of irony that the Twilight Zone specializes in. We should also note that these are 25-minute episodes. They are so quick. TCG, how do you find this one? And what's your general experience with the Twilight Zone? Have you watched a bunch?
Do you know what? I haven't really watched many of these. So coming into this, was kind of a new experience for me. I'm the one I'm really familiar with is the William Shatner one. That's the one that stands out to me the most. And I don't know if this was a Twilight Zone episode as well, but there was one episode, or there was an episode, I should say, with Dan Aykroyd in it.
That's Terror at 20,000 Feet, where he takes... That's the movie. And John Lithgow does Terror at 20,000 Feet. Dan Aykroyd is the driver in the opening scene.
Yes.
And that's where the song Midnight Special, that wonderful, wonderful earworm that I listened to this week, that I still can't get out of my head.
There you go. So yeah, that is the extension of my experience of the Twilight Zone. I have to say though, I was hooked with this one. Yeah, this was a lesson on morality, wasn't it? And hypocrisy, big time. It was obviously massively talking about addiction and how it like pulls you in and pushes those closest to you away. It was a really good episode. I said this to you in private horror show, but when the slot machine started following this chap around, I couldn't help but get lost in space vibes. I felt like it was going to scream out "Danger, Will Robinson" at some point. You know.
Do you want to know a really weird connection?
Please tell me that. Please tell me it's inspired.
Well, there is I don't think it's quite that, but you know that the creepy little kid we are going to talk about next.
Oh yeah.
I think that's your boy Will Robinson.
Oh Ah,
Yes, it is.
I thought he looked familiar.
Bill Mooney. Yeah, so I'm with you. I think, unfortunately, the very end is quite dated. It's a hard sell. I think, as I said to you, it reminded me a little bit of the old Stephen King short stories, The Mangler, where there is an evil steam pressing machine. Which I was like, it's tough to make a slot machine look menacing. But what worked for me was how it from the very start, they're so economical. You start this with a clear contrast. So there's a couple, you've just got them in close up, slightly odd angle, which already sets you off. And she is enthusiastic as anything. And he is just stone faced, looking like a bulldog who's licked urine off a nettle. You know, he is so furious. And just the fact that they start you on that scene, you're already wondering, there's conflict there. What's the cause of the conflict? You are hooked. And then when they're being greeted and talked to by the management staff, and the photographer there is also cynical, and the manager is enthusiastic. And it's the fact that they infused the scenes with tension from the very start is just really good storytelling. I absolutely loved it. I was just hooked on how much of an absolute dick he was being to her. You know, he's so harsh. And I think we know from the start, which makes it kind of delicious. You're waiting for it to happen. You can see the tables are going to turn, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Everybody's been there, and this is a reminder that everybody will be in this position at some point.
Mm.
And if
Yeah.
you don't control yourself, it will end badly.
There was a thing I wondered, like, he has such a strong reaction to it as an anti-gambler, that this is a 25-minute episode. It has to be quick, and yet the 25 minutes includes Rod Serling's amazing introductions and outros. But I almost wondered, like, if he's quite reactively against gambling, like he'd seen it in his family, he'd seen it in his background.
Maybe.
And that's why he was so strong against it.
Rod Serling was very much against war, against prejudice, against losing self-control. However, he smoked 4 to 5 packs of cigarettes a day and died of a heart attack on the operating table because of the amount of smoking he did.
Chad.
I mean, that is
now.
it is sad, obviously, but think how cool he looked. I mean, look, absolute Chad.
Oh,
come on.
I should have designed my avatar off this dude. That is a suave suit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. His cigarette, ever-present cigarette or cigar, and his cane.
Oh, I haven't seen him with a cigar yet.
There's
Ooh.
only a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
But he always had a cane, either holding it or behind him, because in World War II, he got shot in the knee. He was a paratrooper in the Pacific Theater. And that's why he's so against war, because he saw it up and personal against the Japanese.
Oh, crikey. Yeah. I'm reminded very much of the fact that so many of that generation were there. Like, so many actors saw action. Jimmy Stewart is the first one who comes to mind there. I hope I'm remembering that correctly, but I believe it was. Yeah, this guy is just cool. I saw from my reading that he was particularly motivated by going to Las Vegas, seeing people on the one-armed bandits, and just finding it absolutely dehumanizing. And I thought it was very interesting that he has a completely sloshed guy, a guy sort of comically drunk, be the guy who forces the husband to start gambling in the first place.
Oh, mate, I love that geezer when he came in.
He
It
was
was
so
so
good.
comical, yeah. It was so bad that it was good.
Mm. I was just completely over the top, you know. Yeah,
And it's always the first taste. His first poll, he wins a lot of money or a slight amount of money, and he decides to get on with it, and that's his first taste, and off he goes.
yeah. I think we'll take a little pause while we have Rod Serling on screen. To who can do a good Serling impression?
Not me.
I reckon you could, Chloe.
worries.
I reckon you could.
Oh dear.
But I mean, I'll be like, you're entering another dimension, not of sight and sound, but of hitting that like button.
Oh, fantastic. And
Welcome.
if you haven't already, you know, just leap out your hotel window backwards and land on that subscribe button, completely smash it.
Smashing the shards of smashing the shards of subscribe buttons on your way down.
And anyone, in fact, you know what? Anyone who has not already liked the stream, you are going to the cornfields after this. I will. I'll move us off Mr. Serling's handsome face and get us onto another one from the Fever. There's my boy. It's
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson. How can you not look? I'm telling you. I'm telling you that is.
It's a tough sell. Like this, what I think really works is it's overplayed. Okay, it's melodramatic. They are doing really big acting in all of this. And when you've watched a fair few Twilight Zones, you realize it's not all big acting. It's not all delivered really theatrically, but this one they chose to. And I think through that, they're actually able to deliver quite a sort of depressing vision of the casinos and the gambling addictions.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's done in a style that reads, certainly to me, is very over the top, very big acting, when he's there getting stressed out of his mind and they're saying he's been there 8 hours, you know, it does get tense. They start making excellent use, as I showed earlier. It happens as he sticks with it, as he stays with the machine. They do more and more Dutch angles. These are the slanty angles that are telling you something is wrong. Something is disturbing. And they just increasingly do them as they go on. It's a nice bit of directing that they do. You're also noticing here some really strong framing. The center of the action is him, of course, in the clearest focus, but also the wife and the machine. He's sandwiched between them. It's good visual storytelling. Also, the wife is ignored. The machine gets his attention. And it's also, I've got to think of the word for this. Fez, you're going to know this word properly. The f-stops on the camera. They've got a, the word escaping me. It's a high f-stop value that lowers the depth of field, which means that the wife and the machine are also staying in good focus. It's a nice technical detail to make sure that when you're watching this, your thoughts are including the wife, it's including the machine. Whereas if you have a really, really deep depth of field, you would have him in sharp focus, the wife would be blurry, the machine would be blurry. It's a good shot. Possibly that was just the camera they had and I'm overanalyzing it, but I really liked it. So it's actually, I've talked for a while. Murgoot, is there anything else you wanted to say on the fever?
No, I think you've covered it. I mean, TCG nailed it. So,
Yeah,
I barely said anything.
No worries.
The fiction stuff.
Oh yeah, but it is in your face. I mean, if you're not picking up those vibes, then I worry about you. It is.
It's
There's
a
a very
long
yeah.
public service announcement.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's very public service. So the completely legal copies that I have the date it was first broadcast on them, which always fascinates me. I don't know. When I sat down to watch this and it says this was originally shown on January 29th, 1960, man, that sort of gives me a little bit of a shiver there. I also have all the adverts that played after each episode on my completely legal copies. And it's not for this one, but one of the ones after this is actually a advert telling people go to church, which is quite amazing. Very based. But something we're going to see going on is that the Twilight Zone is extremely unafraid to put a moral view out there.
Oh, he fought the censors, corporate television and government censors, tooth and nail every single episode. This one was light on censorship. Some of the other ones, like, some of the more controversial, like the incident at Owl Creek. There was a bit with A Good Life just because, we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll move on to that next, because I have the feeling that I could tell there was some censorship on that one. This not so much, but the moral comes across. One of the episode that someone requested, Death's Head Revisited, is about, concerns of mid-century Germans. And I think that was one of the more harrowing, more horrifying, really sort of, oh my gosh, you were able to show this on TV episodes. And I can imagine their trouble with that. But I thought that was possibly, we would talk about that episode for at least an hour if we did it. So I'm not covering that in this one, but I am going to cover it at some point. It's fitting in with another video I'm wanting to make. But with that said, I think it's probably best if we score as we go. So can I get your scores for It's a Good Life? Murgoot, if you'd like.
Oh, for the fever, 7 burgers.
Oh, sorry, the fever. My apologies. 7 burgers?
Yeah. It's average. It's
cheese?
No cheese.
Pickle?
Maybe a pickle or two just for the spice. But I mean, this one for a Twilight Zone episode, besides it being a blatant morality play, it's pretty bland, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's fair. TCG, how about yourself?
I'd go a little bit higher. I'd say 8.5 burgers. I'm going to throw the cheese in though. I'm sorry. The slot machine was hilarious. It got a bit crazy, but as I say, because this was kind of like an introduction for me, I felt like this was a good introduction to the series, and I was then excited to then see what else was available. So yeah, it did a good job roping me in, and there were some utterly Chad moments from the guy when his missus was telling him to maybe wind it in a bit. Will you shut up, woman? I was like, dude. But yeah, I mean, like Murgoot said, it was a very clear message. It very much knew what it was telling its audience, and it was very clear in its opinion of gambling and how destructive it could be, especially to those who are ardently against it. And it's just, you know, it was very good at revealing sort of like the morality of man, but also the hypocrisy of man too.
Mm. I'm seeing a 3 hamburgers in from Sue. Okay,
Brutal.
a bit low. Okay, well, I'll be watching. I'll see what other scores you give Sue. Yeah, this one isn't the strongest, but it's pretty cozy. I'm inclined to vote score a little high, just because they're 25 minutes long and they're charming. And so I'm never sort of sitting there suffering like, oh, get on with it. You know, it's so I do tend to score slightly higher. Buttered Crumpet, next one we're gonna do
we aren't done yet.
It's a Good Life we're gonna do next. My score for The Fever, I think it's a very 6. And I have to vote it about a 6 because I know the heights are a lot higher in the series. So I'm kind of grading on a curve here. It's charming. It wouldn't be one I reach for, but it was kind of charming, and it had good, strong performances and good morals. Oh, right. Moving on to surely one of the most infamous Twilight Zone episodes. It's A Good Life. If I can ever find the photos of it. Here we go.
Oh, this is so good. This is a really good episode. It's so good. I think little Timmy, or whatever his name is, he's so good. He's such a
It's a swell episode. It's
Don't
such a
we
good thing we chose this episode.
don't we all love this little lad? Isn't he so good? I mean, look at that haircut. That haircut's so good. Look at the gap in his teeth. It's so good.
It was real good. You watched this TPG. Real good.
He's
Real good.
clearly watching this stream and presenting it to the town because, you know, he really likes Double Feature Horror Show, and that's good. That's so good.
Yeah. Buttered Crumpet. These were first time watches for me, and I think actually this was a first time for all of them except this episode, this particular one. So it's absolutely fine. Forgive us if we do spoilers for this. We talk full spoilers for all of this, but I don't think it would really hurt your enjoyment of any of these. It's all about the performances. It's all about the atmosphere. So hopefully we don't ruin any episode or spoil any episode for anyone. But if you do want to be completely unspoiled, then feel free to duck out now. As I said, the episodes we're covering are The Fever, It's a Good Life, Nothing in the Dark, and The Obsolete Man, if we can fit that in. All right. I feel somewhat satirized in this scene. You know, are we Anthony? Are we gleefully forcing everyone in front of the TV screen and showing them disgracefully violent images? Is it us?
Oh, mate,
Anthony?
Do you know what? Actually, this bit was actually quite comical because they're all sitting there in disgust. They're all like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is disgusting. But then when you actually see what's being played on the TV, it's like 2 stop motion triceratopses fighting. I was unironically going, yeah, go on, get in there. Go on. Yeah, brilliant. Break him down.
It was a bit Robot Chicken, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But I tell you what, right? If I was little Anthony, there would be no, if I was in that town with that little Anthony kid, right? I'd be like, do you know what, mate? That was bloody brilliant. Have you got any more? Because come on.
Looks like stock footage from one of the 1933's King Kong or
Jason and the Argonauts.
No, there's brain fart. What's the name of it? It's
Harryhausen.
No,
Harryhausen's
pre-Harryhausen. It's pre-Harryhausen. Or maybe it's one of his first movies. It's late 20s, early 30s. People get stranded on an island with dinosaurs and they watch battles.
Oh, I cannot help. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to give you a name.
It would make a lot more sense if they just reused old footage, but it kind of made sense to me that it looked like he was using a couple of his toys and then just make it quite disturbingly violent. But before we go further, we should probably do a quick synopsis.
I'm sorry, just to interrupt. I'm just actually catching up with episode 4 at the moment, and I'm at the end of it. What the frick?
It's
That's
great.
horrifying.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't want to dip out at that point in the conversation, so I just sort of had it on the back. That was horrible. Actual chills. Okay.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Tell you what, while you get the make sure you listen to the closing narration from Serling.
I've actually got it here.
Murgoot, if you'd like to do the synopsis for It's a Good Life.
Okay. You're introduced to a small town that has basically dropped off the map. The town is the only thing existing, at least to themselves. And it introduces you to Anthony, 6-year-old with ultimate power, who controls everything. He makes everyone smile. He hates singing, so he basically mutes someone and forces her to smile. Goes through, creates his own creature, 3-headed gopher, and then kills it because it tries to bite him. Hates dogs, so eliminates them. Any friends he tries to make in town, they disappear whenever they anger him. He likes the grocery store guy who comes by because he's always pleasant and always brings him tomato soup. Even though, like, bar soap has been long gone because nothing's coming into the town. He forces them to watch television, his favorite shows, none of theirs. Then they all get together to hear the piano and gift giving, and the man who gets his prized Perry Como record ends up getting drunk and saying exactly how he feels about Anthony, and horror ensues. And then he makes it snow, killing off the crops in the end.
I found that funny when he was like, "But it's going to destroy half the crops." It's like, dude, the kid could just make some. Come on, man. But
yeah, you have that feeling of they might be able to get him to summon them, but they can't make him understand. And
yeah, nice.
I absolutely love this. There are so many places we could start with this episode.
John Gore is basically an autist.
Bill Mumy, aka Anthony, he was Robinson in Lost in Space.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Babylon 5 as the alien advisor. And he was a member of Barnes and Barnes, a gimmick music group in the 70s who saw a lot of play on Dr. Domino's show, and their biggest hit was one of the worst earworms ever created called Fish Heads. Fish heads, roly-poly fish heads, eat them up, yum.
Okay.
I've never heard of that.
Never heard of that. Never unhearing it either.
Look it up. You'll have to listen to it to get rid of it. It's awful. I used to watch the Dr. Domino, or listen to the Dr. Domino show on the radio late at night. All kinds of classic stuff. Weird Al Yankovic got his start on that show.
Okay.
Ooh. So this has a massive legacy. It's written by Serling himself. Many episodes were, but you've probably caught references to this show, even if you weren't aware of it. So obvious references recently. Black Mirror's season 4 opening episode, USS Callister, is basically fully stealing its premise from this episode.
Simpsons did it.
Yep, Simpsons did it in a Treehouse of Horror episode early on. Anyone played Fallout 3? I believe it's
No.
Fallout 3.
No, I
There's
haven't,
a
no.
there is a, so it might be 4. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 3. There's a section where you get stranded in a town that's effectively simulating this to an extent, and is making reference to this episode. So that was a nice little thing they snuck in. The online massive multiplayer game Second Life stole an idea from this.
Okay.
When Anthony is annoyed with people or dogs, he sends them to the cornfield.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't elaborate on this, but it's a place that they never come back from. And it's a really clever idea, because if you're a 6-year-old, imagine you're in a cornfield. It would look completely endless. There we go. Thank you, 70 Sue. I thought I was going mad. Yes. So it's number 3. Wonderful.
Getting lost in a cornfield as a kid is no joke. Been there,
Yeah.
done that. Getting lost in a wheat field when you're 5.
Yeah.
Pretty
You
scary.
You can imagine, if you're him, the wheat field is endless to you. So when he thinks of an endless place where you can't get out of, he thinks of a cornfield. I love that. That is such a good touch.
We should have invited Theresa May on the stream, because she could have told us about the wheat fields and
Oh, she'd have a gay old time.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear.
I'm sure she could relate. Anywho.
What else? This is also one of the episodes that they've gone back to, not once, not twice. Now, we've referenced Terror at 20,000 feet. I think it deserves a stream of its own. But this one was remade in, I want to say 2002? Sorry, no, apologies.
Vignettes in the Twilight Zone, the movie.
That's it.
In 1983.
Thank you, that's it. And they made a sequel to it in 2000, in the 2000s. And that starred young Bill Mumy again as a far older Bill Mumy. And I believe they also got Cloris Leachman back in, which was quite amazing. Cloris Leachman sadly died last year, which was a bit sad.
Oh, rip.
Yeah, R.I.P. indeed. One of those people, you have just seen her in so much. And if you look up her filmography and television history, you'll be astounded. That's true of a heck of a lot of people who are going to be in these Twilight Zone episodes.
Yeah, one thing I have to say about this is the original, while the Twilight Zone, the movie, had better effects and they played up the demonic rabbit for horror effect, the movie was nowhere near as creepy as this one was, just because this one had a lot more subtlety. It was not as in your face. The creeping horror of this one gets to you after a while.
Yeah, I found that. It just sucks because I think the kid was a bit of a crap actor, but I mean most child actors are. But yeah, I don't think it took away from sort of like the horror element of it, because I mean it's just dreadful, man. I mean, sort of what you said earlier when I mentioned about they could just sort of restock the crops, and you saying, well, yeah, but he wouldn't really understand like the concept behind it. That's actually quite a good point. Like as far as this kid's concerned, you know, especially at that age, what 6? You know, you expect the world to be served to you on a silver platter, and you know, he's at the ripe age for temper tantrums, just for the most minute thing. And as a father of 3, I can attest to that.
You must have seen it. The 6-year-old is a force you cannot argue with. That in the
Yeah.
original story, he's only 3, I believe.
Oh, really?
I think making him 6 was a much better choice.
Yeah, I do as well, because I think there's more of a he, even though he wouldn't be like fully, I don't want to say corpus mentis, but aware of his actions. It's funny enough, because that's one of the arguments going on in the latest video I've done, because he was the same age. In fact, this kid could very well be that kid. You do something quite like he even demonstrates it, like when he turns around and says to his dad, like, nobody came to play with me the other day, none of there's no children around, and he's like, well, yeah, because you chucked them all in the cornfield, like maybe don't do that. But he doesn't really sort of acknowledge it. He just sort of then pays attention to the dog that's barking outside, and then sends that dog to the cornfield. Oh, I didn't like it. And like what you were saying with the 3-headed gopher, he killed it because he got bored with it. Like he doesn't understand the concept of things like death, and you wouldn't, at that age.
That's the thing. Serling and the story writer didn't consider Anthony evil. They just thought he was a 6-year-old, and they basically thought this is what happens when you don't lay down the law. If a 6-year-old could do anything they wanted, they wouldn't have the mental capacity to, tolerate hardship or tolerate something they didn't like for greater benefit. They don't have that. But the term, it's not compos mentis, but folks, if you want to win a pub quiz, the phrase would be Dolly in Carpax. If you want some random Latin, Dolly in Carpax, incapable of guilt. There's that law degree being useful.
This is, although the trope is much older, this is one that a lot of filmmakers and story writers point to for ye old kids are psychopaths trope. And just because the sheer selfishness, not necessarily malevolence, just the sheer selfishness of it.
That's the thing. That's all it is this is a kid who hasn't been disciplined. So again, this is really strong moralizing in I think a slightly more subtle way. Like, no one is coming out and telling you what has happened here is they have failed to discipline their child.
That's it.
You're left to infer it and realize he's sorry, I cut you off there.
No. Sorry, I cut you off. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, this for me is a story of piss poor parenting, because presumably because he can do these things, such destructive things like sending people to the cornfields and just switching the lights out of people and turning them into Jack in the Boxes with their heads popping around, which, by the way, I thought was bloody brilliant. Presumably, he would have the power to reverse that, but the parents never instill that element of character in him where he would be remorseful of those actions or where he would reverse those things. They haven't. They're like the antithesis of John and John and Martha Kent. Because they had a child who was superhuman, who could essentially do what the hell they wanted, and he grew up to be, truth, justice, and the American way. Whereas you've got little freaking Damien over here just murdering everything on sight and banishing everything just because he doesn't like something. I think
raised right.
He wasn't raised right. No, because they could, because if I don't know, if his dad got mouthy with him and he banished him to the cornfield, the mum could have been like, wait, no, don't do that, and have a conversation with the kid and be like, yeah, bring your dad back, and then he can do that. He'd know he can reverse that sort of thing, but he's never demonstrated to do that. There's no guidance with the powers that he's got, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it would be hella scary, but at the end of the day, you're his parents, and that hierarchy still needs to be in place. Yeah, I'm sticking with that. The parents are the antithesis of the Kents. They are shit, and they deserve everything they get.
Yeah, they're absolute terror sells
Pardon
it.
my French.
That I know twice TCG swearing on this
I can't help
family friendly stream.
I know. Well, I'm rusty. I'm not used. I've got to get used to the terms and conditions you make me sign before we come in.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. One thing that really makes this work for me is that moment of like tenderness. Like Anthony lets his guard down around his father briefly, and you see he still needs his parents' approval,
Yeah.
even while he has this power over them. And that's what really sells it. He is not a demon kid. On this stream, we have covered Village of the Damned, so another evil kids thing, psychic powers kids, very different vibe to this. Like this is much more or less about parenting. If you think earlier to the 50s, I think it's the 50s, The Bad Seed is another evil child. I mean, we are not short of evil child films. Let's have a quick look. I'm just confirming that. 1956 was the first adaptation of it. There we go. Of The Bad Seed. I didn't enjoy it myself.
The one in the 90s, wasn't Macaulay Culkin in that one? The Bad Seed?
I think The Bad Son, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's quite a disturbing film, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was. I'm having a look.
I haven't seen it since it hit video the first time, so I have vague memories of it.
Possibly inspired. The Visitor. I think I haven't heard of, John Garris. Thank you. What decade is that from? Let me know when The Evil Child, when The Visitor was from. Yeah, this one just works for me. So this has got the most resonance because I think it's got the most predictive power. Now, Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers wrote about a revolution that occurred basically because there was a total failure to discipline the youth. The youth got out of control and thought they could get anything whenever they wanted. And it basically took the older adults, the retired military guys, to basically come in and lay down the law. I've seen other channels reference this episode in reference to sort of current political strives, emanating from the university and elsewhere, where effectively no one has said no. People have granted special privileges and not laying down the law. I can't even say it. Gosh darn. So it appeals to me, like, without wanting to like lay a really obvious political lens, it's kind of an evergreen topic.
Yeah, they talk about the layabout class, especially the kids, high school and college kids, being that way. Jerry Pournelle's Falkenberg's Legion talks about that and how it started a war on Earth. That was bad.
I think even Logan's Run, to an extent, had that in the idea of, if the society is entirely run by the young, what will they direct their energy to? You need the sort of cooler heads of the adults, the mature adults, to give the perspective and put limits on. That might be a reach on Logan's Run, but
we'll get to the author of Logan's Run in the next episode we go over.
Yeah. So I love it. This one just has so much power. I mean, as I said, I've seen people reference this a lot, and it does seem extremely relevant on the less spicy end, just when you see footage of university students shrieking at professors. I'm like, oh, Anthony, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? Another point that stood out to me, and I'm sure stood out to you guys, the amazing decision that there is no happy ending to this.
Mm. I mean, how how would you end it? Really, I mean, you either end it the way it did, or you end it with them battering a small child to death. You know, because it was already past the point where the parents could sort of step up and be like, Anthony, no, what are you doing, bad boy?
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's such an unbearably tense scene. The one guy, Dan Hollis, he's been robbed of the pleasure of his life. He just wanted to play his Perry Como records,
Yeah.
and he's denied, so he just drinks himself silly. I mean, he is absolutely hammering. That's maybe one of the weaker elements, is that he is just comically hammering the brandy. He just downs a full glass. He downs a full. I don't know about you guys. I cannot. Fez, can you get through that much brandy as Dan Hollis did, chaining it?
Those
Definitely
whiskey
couldn't.
and brandy, and yeah, I used to be able to in college.
I cannot shotgun like that. Anyway, but him drunk off his head, and it's the old in vino veritas. Weirdly, it's drink that lets him speak, and he's just pleading with everyone. Come on, do something. Come on, help me. Someone batter him over the head, and no one does it. And it's just, I mean, I think, as you say, maybe it's a censorship thing, but it leaves you, the audience, just seeing an injustice and just desperate for someone to take action, which, if you're moralizing, means you think possibly, oh gosh, I do need to remember responsibility with my kids. I do need to remember that I need to be the authority figure and keep them in line. It gives you that sort of urge because you're so desperate for 70 Sue, in vino veritas, in wine there is truth, or wine loosens the tongue, as they say. It's all the Latin is coming out tonight. I'll wait until the next episode, and I'll drop some ex turpi causa non orator actio. It's literally.
Stop it. We struggle when you speak German. Chill.
It's literally the only thing I do with my Lord of War. Anyway, enough of that.
Speaking broken Latin?
Yes. It's the only thing it's good for. Okay. Was there more that you'd like to say on this absolutely brilliant episode?
I love the minimum special effects, or the complete lack thereof.
Yeah.
I love how the three-headed gopher is off screen. You can't see it. He's like, right, you're dead now. And you don't hear it writhe, or you don't see it or anything like that. But you're left to imagine what a three-headed gopher would look like. I thought this was really clever, because when they did the whole Jack in the Box bit with the head, I mean, it's quite daft, because obviously you're looking at that. You're seeing the shadow of the man's head as as the Jack in the Box, but then when it goes to him doing it, it's just him with no top on, and you can see his shoulders just sort of like going up and down on the screen. Just sort of. It was clever. It was clever, but I mean, there's a definite continuity issue going on between the shadow and the actual guy himself. But I appreciated the effort. I mean, CGI was still a few years away, but there are some there were some pretty impressive practical effects even in that day. But I thought it was an interesting choice not to go with any, and just leave it all to the imagination, I guess. And I thought that was quite cool.
You're talking of sorry, I'm going to try and find it just because it's really cool. Right. I hope this works. You're talking about cool effects from back in the day. I think I've got it. I have got it. Sorry. I should have got this up before I started speaking. I'm going to show you something from, I think it's 1937. just while we're on the topic of really cool effects, okay, here we go. This is just going to play in. So this is from a film
Oh
called
my
Shush the
God.
Octopus. This is all in camera.
Wow.
I'm just going to let that play for you a few times.
That's horrific.
It is, isn't it? So they did this in camera, and the way they've done that is they have the actress has colored makeup on the whole time. Not
Right.
that kind of. Anyway.
Start of the evening. Wait
Yes.
wait for it. End of the evening.
That's by
And
the
they
time
just
someone
filter,
suggested
don't
Jaeger
they?
bombs.
Yeah.
So what they've done, I'll keep it playing. So she's got the discolored makeup on the whole time in a
Right.
strong color filter, and there is a color filter in the same color over the camera lens. So
Oh,
think
that's
of how when you have
amazing.
the old 3D glasses,
Yeah.
you can't,
Mhm.
and you look through the red one, you can't see writing in red. That's what
Mm.
they've done. The equivalent. They've taken the lens off, and then, the filter off, and then suddenly the makeup is visible.
That's so clever.
It's brilliant. 1937. Sorry,
Wow.
I will
film
take
is
us back.
that?
It's a film called Shush the Octopus. It's
Hmm.
not the greatest title, I'll be honest with you. But it's a really cool effect. Sorry, guys. I thought you would enjoy that.
Yes.
Yeah, this was a sensible choice to limit the effects. And also, hey, Bilbo Belbo, good to see you. I also saw Mima come in earlier.
Mm.
Good to see you guys.
Hey guys.
First stream of the year. Yeah, sensible to limit what they showed, although they did goof a bit. Murgoot, do you know if they censored the three-headed gopher?
No, that was an off screen because they didn't have the budget for anything that wild.
Okay. I did wonder if maybe they just didn't have permission for it.
They went over budget quite a bit, and that would have put them way over budget.
Okay.
Serling was always fighting for budget. So they had to be really clever with the way they did things.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that's always really difficult for anthologies is and sketch shows as well. New sets are expensive. And when you have to bring in new actors and make new sets for every story, the costs really build up. I was watching something recent. Oh, His Dark Materials. I was watching His Dark Materials season 3 the other day, and I noticed that the army bunker was basically just a repainted version of the Arctic laboratory from season 1. I was like, crafty. You kept it it looks like they've literally got the same formation of everything, but they've sprayed it red instead of silver. It's like,
This Pullman's His Dark Materials.
yeah.
They made a series out of it.
Yeah, they have. Not to derail, I quite I was pretty okay. Even enjoyed seasons 1 and 2, but season 3 seems to have really, I don't know, the writing's gone terrible. I don't know.
Which service or channel is it on?
BBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were doing well. I don't want to derail, but yeah, but something's gone weird with season 3. Did you have anything more to say on It's a Good Life?
I think you guys have said everything that I've thought about. TCG.
Be a better parent.
I love the moralizing. I think this is the one where I had the advert that said, Sunday is coming up, take your children to church or synagogue. Apologies to Americans. I cannot for my approximation. But I thought that was just kind of amazing that was on TV. Like, kind of, oh, that's sweet. One of the things I've got in my completely legal copy is a kind of preview episode where Serling is talking specifically to advertisers, and he's kind of assuring them he's saying what he's going to do for the first several stories, and then kind of assuring them that it won't be indecent. It's quite lovely.
Love it. Love it.
It's an odd thing.
Did
Rattling through so we stay efficient.
I'll say,
what was that, TCG?
did he have a cigarette in his hand as he was?
He did.
Yes. Get in.
Oh, I love it so much. All right. I think we will now move on to Nothing in the Dark.
Well, how about the ratings first?
Oh my gosh,
Oh, yeah,
you're
let's do
so
that.
right. I'll get the image up, but let's do our ratings for It's a Good Life. Thank you for reminding me. TCG, would you like to go first?
Yeah. I'd probably go a little bit lower with this one. I would have actually said about 7 out of 12 burgers. No real reason for that. Just it's losing 5 burgers because of the poor parenting. I'm sorry, but I told you, get everything they deserve, including 1 less burger.
So you sort of like, I'm not feeling sympathy for them. They did this.
I kind of don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. Parenting is tough, and children can be very demanding. But the basic red lines need to be drawn. And when it came to the mother and father in that story, they had completely failed, because the ramifications not only impacted their own family, but the entire town. The entire town were bent to this kid's will, and even if it meant the parents were impacted themselves, i.e., sent to the cornfields or blown up or whatever, if they at least tried to instill those messages into that child, then maybe, just maybe, he could have come through eventually at the other end once he realized, his parents were right. Essentially, it's annoying because this kind of reminded me of WandaVision.
Oh,
I got WandaVision vibes.
yeah.
Although I did kind of appreciate that the fact that there was no lesson learned for that child. It just sort of was business as usual, and nobody sort of stepped up. I did like that difference, but I wondered whether there was any sort of influence that the Marvel producers took from that particular episode of the Twilight Zone, because it was there in a more subtle way, but
it's a powerful scenario.
Yeah.
WandaVision uses the scenario. Black Mirror used the scenario in USS Callister.
Yeah.
The thing I started saying earlier and I didn't complete was it's in Second Life. If you do anything the mods don't like, you get sent to a cornfield for a timeout. That was a reference. Like literally, it's a zone that is an endless cornfield.
Yeah.
While a screen plays a lecture that you have to watch that tells you what bad thing you've done. Sorry, that's what I meant to complete earlier in terms of references. Sorry, TCG. So you were scoring that a bit lower. Did you say 7?
Yeah, just 7. Yeah, I think because I think mostly because after I'd seen the first one and I was like proper buzzed for that. This one, it was good. It was good. But I'd probably go with Murgoot, like with his assessment of the first one. It was kind of just middle of the road for me. But yeah, It was all right. I was still very much interested in finding out more.
It does leave you hungry for more.
This is it, yeah.
70, so there 9 cheeseburgers. That's more my zone. I think that is a big jump up in score from 3 for the fever, 9 for this. Okay, Murgoot, yourself.
I'm gonna have to say 9 or 10. Actually, I'd go for 10 just because of how influential it is. With a bit of cheese. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair. I think it ends up on a. If I'm generous, it's a 10. It's probably more of a 9 because there's just a few things that could have upped it for me. Like I would have liked that gopher. something with the if he just walks away and then you're looking on the ground and there's this poor horrific thing, that would have been quite powerful, just seeing how he walks away from it. I guess I just largely I wanted more, and the Jack in the Box transformation was good, but could have landed a bit more horrifically, like without the insert. It might have been a bit better.
They didn't need to put his face on the camera with his shoulders popping up and down. Do you know what? I'm going to revise my score. Sorry, I'm giving it an 8.
There we go.
I'll give it an 8.
I'm so much happy about
just
that. 7, I thought was harsh, man.
Yeah, no, I'll stay on the same point.
Yes.
Yeah, I just
yes, 70 Sue. I want examples. I want to see a bit of the callousness. They did so good in building up and saving the actual demonstration right for the end, and even then keeping it light. So it's chilling for me. I think some small touches, slight improvements to the childhood acting, but I say 9.5. 9.5 for it, and I really enjoyed it. So we will move on now to another season 3 episode, Nothing in the Dark. We're doing this, guys. We're on time. We're efficient.
Look at this. Look at this.
Okay.
As this is, TCG, would you like to try the synopsis for this one?
Oh Christ! Oh yeah. So I mean, this is a pretty straightforward one. This is a story about a woman who is essentially she's a total recluse. She stays in her house or her room all the time, never goes out. And then she hears a bit of commotion going on outside, and she hears a gunshot, and there's a man outside crying for help. He claims to be a police officer who's been shot, and he needs to be let inside so that he could essentially call for an ambulance. She's a bit she is doubtful of the man's claims, as she believes that if she goes outside, she's going to die. After a bit of convincing, she does let him in. And then she goes on to explain that she actually encountered death on a bus on one occasion, and since then death has been following her and trying to claim her. And he would present himself in various guises, whether that be like council officials or what she believed would be like, trustworthy people, essentially. But yeah, essentially she had to completely lock herself away because she didn't want to die. Yeah, and while all this is going on, her apartment or house, whatever, is scheduled to be demolished by the local sort of council, essentially, to make way for new properties to be built. So yeah, a bit of a dilemma going on. I won't give away the ending just yet, but yeah, that's basically it. Old woman doesn't like going out because she thinks she's going to die.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We can hold off on the end for a while. So Murgoot, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, actually, it's fairly relatable for anybody who's either aged or has had health problems that they've had close brushes with death. It's something to think about. Locking yourself away versus living your life, and ignoring the problem until it comes to your door. It's a very straightforward story about that. One thing I did want to say is this one is episode 81, first shown January 5th, 1962.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by George Clayton Johnson. He wrote the novel and the screenplay for Logan's Run. He wrote the first Star Trek episode, The Man Trap, and he also wrote the screenplay for Ocean's 11 with Frank Sinatra.
You get
Nice.
such an amazing array of talented people pitching in for these anthology shows. It's incredible. I love it. We have another amazing appearance in this episode as well. I'll just get him on screen because this bothered me for a lot of the episode. I was like, this guy looks familiar. Yeah, you know what I'm going to say.
Robert Redford,
Robert Redford.
Oh my God, thank you, because that was racking my brains.
It's him.
very,
Amazing.
very young Robert Redford.
Yeah, I loved this. That was so cool to see. I mean, this is not unusual, folks. You've been around this channel a while. You know, we often see absolutely massive A-listers in very small horror roles. Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun, Brad Pitt himself in the execrable Cutting Class. It is kind of standard.
Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street is one of his first roles.
Oh yeah. Who else is a good one? I love these. You just see them. Jason Alexander with hair in The Burning. Just, oh no, what is going on? Monica Bellucci in Dracula 1992. That's a special one.
Speaking of Jason Alexander, if we get to the Obsolete Man, Jason Alexander played Romney in the Twilight Zone radio show.
Really? Oh.
Yes.
Wow. Oh goodness. Okay. So this episode really did not go where I expected it to. From Rod Serling's opening narration, and folks, if you haven't seen these, and I don't think us going over all the details will ruin it. They are about atmosphere. They're a delight whether you know the plot or not. It's all about how they deliver it. His opening narration had me thinking it would go a completely different way. And it's an old woman living in a nightmare, an old woman who has fought 1,000 battles with death and always won. Now she's faced with a grim decision, whether or not to open a door. And in some strange and frightening way, she knows that the seemingly ordinary door leads to the Twilight Zone. I thought she was going to be deliberating over it for absolutely ages, but she did move it on quite quickly and open the door.
Yeah. There's almost a sense of relief as well from her when she realised, actually, I'm still alive. You know, that was pretty cool, because you kind of think, you know, these, even though like the show itself obviously sort of dabbles in the like the supernatural and the paranormal side of things, you kind of do wonder whether it's going to throw a curveball at you and actually just have it reveal that the woman was just a bit of a nut job, and you know, it was literally all in her head. So that question still remained throughout the story, like obviously up until the reveal. But yeah, I tell you what I do love about these ones, that because obviously it's only 25 minutes. They have to cram everything in, and they don't. They move the story on incredibly well, and it does make it feel like
brilliant at that.
Yeah. I mean, what they do in 25 minutes, I don't think TV shows these days are capable of doing in an hour and a half. I mean, the geezer could probably make a 90-minute Marvel movie and have it be a box office smash if he was still around, I'm guessing. But that's just my thought of it.
I find that one of the best things about anthologies is that because of the really short amount of time, you get some really tight writing.
Mm.
We'll cover it later in the year, but inside number 9,
Oh.
amazing. They always give themselves like one location. You start to notice, like, hang on, this always happens in only one location. You never get more, basically never get more than one set
Haven't
outside
we?
of a couple of examples.
We have covered Inside Number 9 before, haven't we?
We've referenced it. I
Referenced
don't
it.
think we've ever covered a full episode.
Huh.
I've recommended the Christmas special several times.
Yeah.
because I'm a massive fan of it.
Yeah,
But
we
in that one,
definitely
it's sort of similar thing. They've got 29 minutes and they just have to make the story interesting and work with constraints.
Hmm.
And in this one, Murgoot, as you said, you can see the budget here. One set, no effects, just 3 actors just doing dialogue, and you're absolutely gripped.
Hmm.
I was going to say, this episode does take a massive swerve for me because this started off absolutely terrifying. Like, for me, when I was watching this, I was reminded of when I was living in London, and that thing of there's some shenanigans going
Hang
on
on.
outside, you know.
If I go outside, am I going to get stabbed? Is that what you're saying?
I lived in a stabby area.
Oh God!
No! I've had those experiences of you're hearing stuff go on outside, you're looking out your window, and you are bricking it. I've had that, and that put me right back there. She made it so relatable, you know. And then the episode pivoted on that. It also, I mean, it's one of those things where I started complaining about some bits of it once it pivoted. Like, does that work? That's a bit silly. Before I realized that they actually were deliberately weird. They were deliberately a bit hokey. And you were meant to pick up on them being a bit odd. We should maybe talk. Shall we talk about the twist and take it a bit further?
Yeah, sure. So, it transpires that the man that she helped at the very beginning, the police officer, turned out to be Death.
Yep, the comforting angel of death.
Death
is a natural part of life and should bring you comfort rather than fear.
Yeah, because I thought it was quite cool when she realizes, because she's like, you could have taken me at any moment. You know, why did you do this? And he was like, because I wanted to show you that I'm nothing to fear. You sat with me, we spoke, you told me your innermost feelings. Are you scared of me now? You know, I thought that was pretty cool. It
landed really well. I'm going to move off this screen in a second. But some of the element that I thought was really weird was the whole idea of he's been shot, which is why she drags him in. And then he's just sort of in bed with like a sling on and he's okay. He's doing all right. And I thought, that's a bit hokey. That's a bit weird. And you're meant to realize that oh yeah, of course. Of course he's fine. He's dead. That was just his reason for getting in. And then this guy comes in, this Dan Aykroyd looking dude. Oh my God, it's Dan Aykroyd as Indiana Jones. What is happening here, my dude?
Oh mate, imagine that universe, eh?
Oh, he's picking the Crystal Skull vodka off the plate.
I would be I'd be a variant in that one.
Trying to replace it with his residual check from Coneheads. It's not working.
Did you see they took one of Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Skull vodka bottles and did a facial reconstruction on it?
Oh God,
as hell.
Right, hold on.
You got to look that up.
Right.
Okay, so this guy, not played by Dan Aykroyd, he's Can I find? I won't look him up. Anyway, he's a building contractor. He is there to demolish the building. He's saying it's all condemned.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
All right, put it in the Discord. We'll get
it's
it
coming.
up.
It's coming.
He gets to give this really great speech about the building, and it's okay. It's maybe a bit on the nose, but he's talking about a thing, but he's really meaning another thing. He's talking about how he has to tear down the building because basically things have a natural
Oh my
lifespan,
God,
and they're going to build a new one. And his talk about the buildings is obviously kind of about her, about how it's absolutely natural that things grow, they're loved, they're lived in, and then it's time to move on. I'm waiting for this link, man.
I'm just saying now.
And you're kind of meant to think that he is death because of how obvious the double entendre is. And then you're realizing, and again, I complained to Waifu about this. So I'm like, has this episode just completely forgotten about the police officer, about Robert Redford?
It's it's in the horror homework club chat.
All right, I've got it. And have they completely forgotten about him? And it's like, no, I'm an idiot. It's deliberate that the guy didn't see him. That's how you get the tip off. And Jesus. Oh, that's not okay.
Now imagine that as a horror character. That would be amazing.
Oh, that is absolutely cursed.
I'm sure the chat are dying to look at this image.
Oh my God. Okay, chat, brace yourself. I'm going to put this on screen. This is the facial reconstruction from one of Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Skull vodkas. This is absolutely cursed beyond belief. This is worse than Aphex Twin. That is absolute nightmare fuel. Oh.
Now, chat, as you're looking at this image, I want you to have this thought in mind. Okay, you're asleep at night in bed. It's 3 a.m. You hear your sleep is disturbed ever so slightly by a noise. It's the creaking of your door. When you open your eyes and the blurriness fades, that image is looking straight above you, close up.
Oh.
Add some lank hair and a hat, and you've got the man who laughs.
And then there's a small head tilt as you make eye contact with it.
Oh. Oh, not okay. That is, I've got to get that off screen. That is absolute. that is not right. That is not right.
There is Uncanny Valley, and then there's that.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, so not a fan Discord. That's just where I do the organizing with guests and send homework and reading. Maybe I should do a Discord, but I am terrible at social media. So basically, you can find me on Twitter is probably the best way to reach me.
Now this is what TCG looks like under the mask.
Oh,
it's more accurate, to be fair. It's more accurate.
I'll also just point out the obvious thing here. A nice little bit of cinematography. She's there against her bedspread, but obviously it looks like bars of a prison. You're that close in that it's meant to just look like prison bars. It's it's standard symbolism, but it's nice. It's nice that they include it, and we always appreciate that. So that was lovely. Yeah, when the reveal happened, and I realized that the things like the gunshot not being handled realistically, or the scene basically forgetting about him, about Robert Redford, while the building demolisher guy is chatting to her, realizing that was all deliberate. Appreciated that. Oh, TCG, please do not be changing to that. Please don't change it to that damn face.
It's staying.
Check your Twitter DMs proper.
Oh no. Okay, luckily I can't see it at the moment. It's not showing. Oh yeah, I see it. Is that which oh, help me out, which one is it? It's why is my brain not getting this guy? It's a guy who's got a famous son in the same industry.
Lon Chaney.
Lon
Okay.
Chaney.
I've removed
Thank
it. It's
you.
not popping up on the stream.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
not popping up, I'm afraid.
It's the character that the Joker was based on.
Yeah.
Even StreamYard's like, nope.
They're not allowing it. Thank you, StreamYards. You've saved us. Yeah, you're right. You get in the feel that she's just locked in. Yeah, so this is this swung for me. This goes from for me intense horror, intense relatable horror, into something kind of sweet. Like we're getting a strong message, but it was kind of nice.
I quite like the bit when, you know, she sort of holds out her hand and, you know, he goes to take it and she's like, you know, she's obviously petrified about dying, and then like they touch, and she's like, you know, so how long is it going to take? And he's like, it's done. Look at the bed. There she is laying on the bed, and he's like, was that so bad?
Yeah,
It's like your journey's just beginning now.
it's sweet. I've seen it a few places. I mean, I don't want to say they're all taking it from this episode, but that depiction of death is very recognizable. I'm thinking particularly American Gods did basically that exact scenario.
Right.
Of the whole, the woman looks down and her body's already there. They didn't go for the tender thing as well. Sorry, Murgoot?
Sandman.
Did they do it as well?
Death. She did it.
I haven't read Sandman, and I haven't seen the Netflixization of it. I'm afraid it's a massive black hole in my viewing and reading. I'm afraid.
Yeah, read the graphics.
Okay. Oh man, that's a project. There's one thing I did want to ask about, because something really intrigued me about this, and it's just one bit of dialogue that Robert Redford says. And it's when he calls her mother. Do you remember that?
No.
Mm-mm.
He calls her mother, and I almost wondered, on some level, has he appeared to her basically in the form of her son? Like, is she terrified of death because she saw her son die violently? And that's what sent her, you know, like locking herself away?
I don't know. I think she would have recognized him, maybe.
It was an odd line for me. Just an odd thing to refer to her as mother.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see it, yeah. I don't know. Unless that was just a 50s thing.
Always possible. I mean, one of the things I do like to get everyone watching stuff as early as possible, like pre-60s if I can. And you do run across occasional things where everyone's speaking English, but the words mean something very different. How many times have I'm sure you've seen a few things where a female character just complains about a guy making love to her in the restaurant, or making love to her in front of the whole party, which of course means professing one's love, you know. But it does leave you with awkward lines about making love madly on the lawn, or the Pride and Prejudice classic of Elizabeth saying she was cold, so she stuck her hands in a muff. You know, sometimes the English language moves on, and we have unfortunate relics.
Language
we have an answer.
Cultural drift.
Cultural drift, indeed. There we go.
There we go.
There we go, indeed. I'm thinking of all the sort of Japanese and Chinese films where just any older adult is called uncle. And you're like, hang on, what? Are they related? Huh?
The Mexicans do. Everyone's either auntie or Tia or uncle.
Yeah. All right. Let's do some scoring because I think we have to talk the Obsolete Man. It's so good. It's just so good. Murgoot, would you like to score first?
I give it 10 burgers just because of the message and the way it's done. Redford does masterful work, is the beautiful angel of death.
Yeah.
And it's just so sweet in the end.
I think 10 is very fair. Very fair indeed. TCG, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'd say this was probably at the time when I'd just seen the 3. I think this was probably my favourite one, because of I think the message that it was trying to portray, and not just the fact that obviously that, because to me this wasn't a story about a woman who was frightened of death and actually it was nothing to be worried about. This was a story for me about a life that had been wasted because of the fear of death. Because at one point, and it really sort of stuck with me when she turns around, she's like, I used to love going outside. I used to, enjoy company and things like that, and it's just all been taken away from me. And that was so sad. And and it was almost like in death she managed to get a new life. Once she let go of that fear, and that doesn't just apply to death as well. It could apply to all sorts of things. If you live a life in fear, it's not a life worth living. And I thought that was quite a powerful message for this story, and probably one that was needed at the time, I guess. Because there was still a lot of there was still ramifications going from the Second World War that would have been impacting millions of people, no doubt. So yeah, I would say a strong 9 with some angelic slices of lettuce in there as well.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I think Gladys Cooper's appearance is enough to justify a really high score. Look up her filmography. You've seen her in a lot. She turns up in another Twilight Zone episode. She turns up in the Alfred Hitchcock Hour a couple of times. And even in Adam Adamant Lives.
Oh, wow.
Unexpectedly. Who knew? Who knew? This I find very easy to give it a 10. I might go higher. It's good moralizing. I mean, maybe it's an interesting contrast with a guy who saw the horrors of war producing this episode, but I guess it's more tailored for a time and a place. So for that massive swing between really effective, genuine horror to then turning into something more wholesome, more edifying, everyone is delivering great performances, and there's some lovely cinematography. It's I think it's a strong 10, possibly an 11. I really like this, and again, it's so short, it's so concise. Anyway, so yeah, I'll probably go on. We're seeing some high scores here. I think I saw Sue's. Sue, did you get your score? Oh, there you go. A 9. Yep, agreed. And as you say, it's all in one room. We're seeing the effective budget management there.
Yeah.
It's what you've got to do. You'll have spendy episodes and you'll have episodes where you just need to take one small room and fill it with detritus. All right. I feel sad moving on so quickly, but I just want to make sure we cover the Obsolete Man because it's so good. And so I will move us on to that episode. Just an absolute banger. Right, where are we? Yeah, the standard one of me desperately looking for the image I need. There we go.
Right, this guy really looks familiar as well. Help me out.
Oh, Oh, let's see. Are you a boxing fan, TCG?
Oh yes, thank you. Yes, Rocky.
Yeah, there's your trainer
Mickey.
from
Is it
Rocky. Yeah,
Thank you.
sounding completely different, obviously.
Do you know, I think that's what it was because he wasn't like this guy, you know.
Oh man, it's one of those things. Like, it's so weird. Sometimes you don't connect the performances, and then you're sort of, oh, it knocks your socks off. I had this with Oh, I hope I get his name right. Apologies if I've got this wrong. I want to say Mark Dolan, who was Drake in Aliens, and also the shower room pest. I'll say for Susan's sake, because I can't describe more accurately what he does in Shawshank Redemption. I
Yeah.
want to say it's Mark Dolan. Let me have a look. It's annoying me now. But one of those people that you just I was so sold into the performance I didn't connect. It is not that guy. I'm gonna look it up. Murgoot, while I'm looking up that actor, could you give us the pint of Guinness summary for the Obsolete Man, please?
Yeah. Romney Wordsworth, Burgess Meredith's character, is arrested and brought to trial by the Chancellor of a totalitarian state for being obsolete. Find out he's a librarian, a carpenter, and he believes in God, which makes him obsolete. Basically, he's given a choice of his execution method, and he says, okay, in 2 days I'm going to die. I want to choose my assassin for the manner of my execution. And he's given the dispensation to do it because it's odd. Give me a second. I thought I pulled
no
batteries
problem.
on that phone. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that.
All good.
He gets locked in his housing unit, and you see a library and a safe and an armchair. The Chancellor comes to visit shortly before the execution method, and you find out Romney has chosen to be executed by explosives. And they start discussing his carpentry, why he's obsolete, how books are obsolete, how God is obsolete, and turns out that Romney locked the Chancellor in with him. And they have a discussion, and it gets near the time of the explosion, and the Chancellor realizes it and ends up doing a short prayer to God, rushes out of the room explodes, killing Romney, and the second in command arrests the Chancellor for being obsolete, for believing in God.
It's that Twilight Zone bitter sense of irony that we've talked about, that sting in the tail that is just so essential to these horrific short stories. Is I love that ironic sting in the tail. But this is an important episode.
Yes, it was. It was banned from reruns.
Oh,
because of its strong anti-totalitarian message. They just come out of the final bit of the HUAC. McCarthyism still had the stink. Anything smacking of McCarthyism, Hollywood hated, so they refused to replay it. And
I can imagine that Hollywood upset.
Like, this is anti-communist. This is McCarthyism to the endless degree, so we're not going to rerun it.
I was going to say, was this linked to sort of McCarthyism? Was it around about that time?
It was just after McCarthy was deposed and the last of the HUA committees finished off, and the blacklists were in full effect, and lots of people in Hollywood were pissed off. The funny thing is they took it to be anti-communist, and it was to a point. It was also strongly anti-Nazi. Serling was upset because he was sent to the Pacific because he wanted to go to the European front because he was Jewish and wanted to fight Hitler. And this is in general anti-Hitler, anti-Stalin, anti-communist, anti-Nazism, anti-fascism. But all they saw was
the mustache, both the mustache men, specifically.
And it was banned from reruns because it was McCarthyite.
It's interesting that this one could this episode could upset so many people. As we've already said, the sort of the Hollywood elite hate it for those reasons. In the event, the sort of people that Novara media are terrified of got power, they'd have a gripe with it. But I think the idea of just this strong belief in God would also upset quite a lot of people nowadays.
The reason they thought it was only anti-communist was because of the religious message, and so many people believed in the scientific Soviet man. The perfect there is no God but man kind of trope. And you're obsolete if you read religious things or things that are out of place in that kind of society. You are obsolete, therefore you can be removed. And it's a callback to the Holodomor, the Holocaust, and the purges.
Yeah. I suspect Hollywood was generally also not massively happy seeing seeing someone basically resisting them on the basis of Christianity, which is quite lovely. And it's just one of those things that you think this would not be included today. You would get something close to what you have in the ending monologue, but I think it wouldn't be couched in the same way in the sort of right to be Christian, I think is. And you talked about censorship. I've got here a reference to the original epilogue was a bit different. I'll just read this all out. So what they said in the episode, the actual closing is, the Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete, but so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology which fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete, a case to be filed under M for mankind, in the Twilight Zone. Now, he is a bit longer in the original. The original one reads, after he says, so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, entity, or ideology becomes obsolete when it stockpiles the wrong weapons, when it captures territories but not minds, when it enslaves millions but convinces nobody, when it is naked yet puts on armor and calls it faith, while in the eyes of God it has no faith at all. And then he resumes with the rest of the bit. But it's a powerful statement. Oh, and I've just seen John Garris asking, yes, it is indeed. It's Fritz Weaver from Creepshow. I was looking about, I mean, he's one of those people, if you say the name, you might be aware of it, but we could just show you a few of them. We've actually covered him on Demon Seed when we covered that. He was in Marathon Man, which I really enjoyed. he's done his obligatory turns in Star Trek, The X-Files, and Tales from the Dark Side. You know, you got to get your episodes in. And would also see him again in the 1980s revival of Twilight Zone.
Mhm.
So we may see him again.
Oh, he was all over television. He was one of the journeyman actors who'd take any role that was worth it.
There's a lot of people like that, like Michael Madsen. Michael Madsen will turn up in anything. You know, he'll be cutting ears off in Reservoir Dogs, and then he'll be adopting a kid in Free Willy within 2 years of each other. No, 3 years. Apologies.
Nick Cage, Charles Bronson. I mean, they were journeymen. They're hard workers.
There's definitely, you get some actors who are just acting and it's their job.
The biggest one is Christopher Lee.
Oh, yes. Absolutely prolific. There's a really nice touch. I'll just look up who directed this because there's something I really love about this. Credit to Elliot Silverstein. So you notice in this, we got a really naturalistic look. This is just a room. This is just a living room with a heck of a lot of books. And there's a really, look, I'm going to go on a reach here, so forgive me. But look how disordered the books are. They're absolutely haphazard. This isn't like he doesn't care about books. He obviously cares about books. They're haphazard because he's not a super ordered, rational, functional, everything must be in its place kind of guy. He's an absolute opposite to the very strict, logical, anything obsolete must be removed rationalist regime. That's why his books are all over the place, totally disordered, stacked up in piles. You get the feeling like he was just able to rescue some and he's just brought them in and he's just shoved them somewhere.
And in contrast, the Chancellor compliments him on his carpentry, which is his societal job for his workmanship and the sturdiness of it.
Exactly.
Which is a counterpoint to it.
Also, the point of him being a carpenter and a strong Christian should also not... I'm sure we all got the imagery there. But this is a contrast. This is what we spend a lot of time on. If it looks like an empty soundstage, there's a very good reason for that. But this is shot at completely different angles. Look at how inhuman this is. Like, there's nothing on this set, which is very handy for the budget. But it's this sparse rationality, stripped of anything, stripped of personality, stripped of humanity. But the hierarchy is absolutely inescapable. You get some lovely angles from beneath where the man writing everything down, the man who would go on to replace the Chancellor once the Chancellor becomes obsolete, you get some lovely angles where he's framed really close up with the Chancellor in the background, and it just looks inhuman and weird to convince you that what's going on here is not right. And then that's just contrasted with how homely, lived in, and human Burgess Meredith's home is. Yes, I never remember character names. Romney Wordsworth. And since, speaking of me not remembering names, the guy whose name I forgot is not Mark Dolan. It is Mark Ralston. Mark Ralston from Aliens, and also a heck of a lot of the Saw films, unexpectedly enough. And I forget his name every time, and I shouldn't because he's a good actor. Okay. Was there anything you want to say on the sort of... I've kind of gone on a bit about the shooting there, about how it's telling the story. Pitch in, save chat from me.
The power of it, just the simplicity. and just the excuse the pun, the execution of it.
Wee.
But it's the morals of the self versus the totalitarian society, the man's worth. Just, it's so gripping the way it's done. And Romney's speech to the chancellor, with the chancellor having the creeping realization that he's wrong and Romney is right. And it's his undoing, which, yeah. And living through when the wall fell, it's the same feeling. The joy and the fear all mixed up into one.
I'll tell you what really sort of got worked for me in this video, in this episode, sorry, was the absolute certainty that the state knew everything. You know, like, because I think when I looked over the synopsis for this one, they were like, oh, the state produced evidence to suggest that God wasn't real, like almost as like a definitive, nope, absolutely not. There is no God. Therefore, we are the God. And just watching the episode, just watching that certainty break down to the point where, you know, he's literally begging in the name of God to be released. You know, it's now no longer, you know, the state can no longer help him, because the state have to let the situation play through if they're to maintain their integrity. Whereas he, you know, you've got this guy who's all about the state, and, you know, I serve a purpose, and when push comes to shove, he wimped out and deferred back to an alternative belief system in the hopes that it would save him, and it was that alternative system that did save him, because you know, in the name
you're
of God,
roboting a bit for me there, TCG.
Am I?
I think we got it, but yeah, you're roboting a bit. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that.
It's just my computer in it. I'll see if I can close a couple of things down.
That's okay. Mine is weirdly, it's been showing me the low internet the whole stream, so I've been bricking it. Chat.
Okay.
Hopefully I've been okay, guys. I missed this, Bilbo? Oh, I missed this chat. No. Oh, we will bear it in mind. We'll wrap things up pretty quick, I think. But yeah, I love that. It's in 1960. Serling has seen a lot, you know. I don't know, as you said, he's Jewish. I don't know. It looks like his family were in America for a couple of generations. They weren't recent evacuees, but I wonder if they were sort of German or Polish Jewish.
Wife.
Okay. I'm just sort of wondering, because if they are more Eastern European Jewish, it possibly explains why the episode is a lot more balanced. That it's gone out of its way to talk about communist regimes as well, which is not something I tend to expect of later days Hollywood, which is quite refreshing. I do feel there's unfortunately just a little bit of a bitter pill in seeing, like, a lot of this it's very idealistic and it's quite boomer truth. If you will. Yeah. Like, when you're reading a bit more about history, and you know that, you know, the United States government, just as my own government, isn't exactly flying the flag for truth, honesty, and individual rights, you know. Yeah. You know, at the time this has gone out, you know, our own government, I'll keep it to Britain. Its collusion in the covering up the Katyn massacre is not exactly a shining light of our time. So I'd say it's a slight, it just lends a slight sour note to this, that I can't go along with the full idealism that that Serling injects here. But you don't have to say that he's necessarily saying that America and the UK get the all clear. But that it's always a danger in government. If we're taking that as what he's meaning, then it lands a lot better for me.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
When the Chancellor is actually taken out at the end, how did you feel about that? Because I thought that Burgess, like, it's easy to focus on Burgess Meredith because he's absolutely, killing it here. He's amazing. But that extra scene where the Chancellor meets his fate, I thought was actually, it's an interesting one. And I wasn't sure if it would land with a full scare or if it would maybe land a bit more like the slot machine.
No, it's interesting that he wasn't given his choice of execution. They just beat him to death.
Yeah.
And that's because, as the Chancellor being obsolete, I took it as it offended their, not so much morals, but their way of life more. So they immediately had to remove him.
I kind of read it that kind of like we've seen he's a big scalp to claim.
Yep.
They don't think much of a librarian. He's not a big, they'll just humiliate him. But the Chancellor, they're sort of, everyone wants a piece of that. He's a big beast to hunt.
Yes. Yep.
I do get a slight sort of West Side Story vibe when they originally pounced on him, but it did lead into some like genuinely quite creepy stuff.
Oh mate, I tell you what, when they sort of descended upon him and gave him meeting, the noises they were making, that freaked me out, man, because I hate zombies. And they moved and sort of slinked towards him like zombies. Freaky stuff. Hated it. Loved it. Hated it.
The society turned them into automatons.
It's you also see in that just as the way the Chancellor, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the wire, he calls out for God. The full on, I am a complete big brained rationalist. Everything is efficient, nothing is obsolete. That gets stripped out. You also see it in these guys. When it comes, look how orderly they stand, and they stand like this the whole time. Except for the end, when it comes down to it, they go animalistic.
Yes,
it is sort of pointing out very efficiently how unnatural how inhuman that ideology is.
I was going to say it just strips them of their humanity, doesn't it? That's what they're trying to portray. You've got this one guy who's like, yeah, I read books and believe God. I'm human. I think for myself. And then you just have these people that are just complete animal brains who just go along with what the
it's hard just because it hits really hard just because of the current cancel culture and just hate to say it, but the NPC meme.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cliche, but it's real. It is real.
I watch it in real life at least once a week. I don't count the internet as real life. I mean, actually touch grass, get out in the world, and I still see somebody freak out at least once a week. I don't know, but that's part of the reason why this episode hits so hard is because it's happening right now in real time.
I think with everything except the fever even, we're seeing timeless lessons. You know, things being
Agreed,
highlighted
yeah.
in the 60s, and those lessons are still here, whether it's about there needs to be discipline, there needs to be order. I mean, I suppose that's kind of interesting that we're contrasting It's a Good Life, where the lesson is you need to parent, you need to put discipline and order so that people are sensible, versus this sort of humanizing rejection of total order, total rationality, total control. There's a good balance there.
That is absolutely spot on. I think like you say, the theme of all these episodes, the things that could be sort of tied to it would be order and discipline versus chaos and degenerate, I guess.
Well, Serling, in my mind, is basically taken the place. He's taken the mantle of the Brothers Grimm and Aesop, and it's the morality play on the screen. The horrors of the Brothers Grimm and the harshness of Aesop.
Very much so. You know, one of the first episodes that I watched from the Twilight Zone, I want to say, was it called Where Did Everyone Go? And that as well is about a man who gets sort of lost in nostalgia and realizes he needs to grow up. Like these are all, completely timeless, but they're flavored in a way that is extremely relevant for our times. I mean, I didn't set out to get completely moralizing episodes. I took a selection from what people recommended, but it's turned out that way, and I'm very happy about that.
Maybe that's just, but
Oh,
maybe that's
TCG,
just-
no, try again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Maybe that's just the way that the show was always told, especially if like it's 3 in the first run. I feel like the off the bat when I first started watching this, when I first watched the first episode, instantly I was like, okay, we're getting a moral lesson here, and every episode after that just seemed to have that same sort of moral messaging behind it, and like you do say, it's kind of precedent in society today, or we live in one, where we are kind of seeing these sort of Twilight Zones kind of play out in real time, and we're just seeing how destructive they can actually be. And I don't think the Twilight Zone intended to be a warning, but
some of them, Serling was very moralistic.
I mean, again, I know nothing in terms of the history of things like that, but I just kind of think, you know, like He-Man has a moral message at the end of each episode, or things like that. You don't kind of G.I. Joe, yep, Action Force, Mask. They
all the 80s too.
I had them all on VHS. All great. But yeah, they have all these messages, but I don't think they intended to see the other side win or gain a foothold, because you kind of just expect the good message to prevail, you know. And we're kind of seeing these worrying things, like when George Orwell wrote 1984. I know it's cliche, but again, yeah, it was a warning, but you kind of think, you know, in the long run, I think you'd think the common sense mentality would prevail. I'm kind of rambling now. It's late. I'm tired. But what I'm trying to say is, I think these were just meant to be episodes with a good, strong moral message, not sort of prophecies as to a world that we could find ourselves in. And it's kind of sad to see in some ways that we are kind of living in those sorts of worlds with let's say Murgoot cancel culture, you know, sort of like the war against like free speech. It's kind of sad that we've lost our way a little bit there, but I, I, I maybe I'm still optimistic for the future. Who knows?
I hope so. Well, I'm noticing the time, so we'll be swift with it. But can I have scores for the Obsolete Man?
Sure.
And while you starting the TCG,
yeah, I'll give it another strong 9. I thought this was quite a strong episode. Again, these were all really enjoyable, I have to say. Yeah, I loved the twist at the end, or during this one, where he locks the guy in. The real test of wit. It was brilliant. I really did it, and you know, his faith carried him through even after, you know, even right up to the execution, because he could have bailed out at the same time, and he if anything, you know, he proved his faith over the other guy's faith, and he paid, and the commie / fash paid for it. Yeah, easy 9. Beautiful philosophical burger. It's a burger that makes you think while you're eating it.
sorry, I wasn't prepared for philosophical burger. That makes me so happy. Oh, look at they're coming in now. 12, yeah. And that's an out of the park perfect score from Sue. Holy with 10 burgers for this one. I'm not going to disagree at all. Murgoot, how about yourself?
I give it a 4.
Oh,
I'm gonna give it a 4 because I hate it. It's stupid and it's
oh, Murgoot, how could you? How could you, man? Oh,
yeah, man. I know.
Oh, dear.
Dang it. Sorry. I'm muted. My
No
cat
worries,
was
man.
climbing the Christmas tree and making a lot of noise and forgot about it. I'm sorry. Oh,
okay.
God.
How about your score for the Obsolete Man, Murgoot?
11. This one hit me hard because I see this in everyday life, and I have to touch grass. My mom's church lady group, my God, they keep me grounded. And this is just one that everything going on online, everything going on in real life, just seeing that we've forgotten this lesson over and over and over again. And this one just brings it back that we have to give this lesson. We have to take it and have it become a part of us. I can't give it a 12 just because it's not perfect, but man, does it just hit all the right buttons.
Man, I mean, I think that's fair. I can't give it the full 12. It is one that just leaves me desperate for more. But it's a strong 11 just because I think the cinematography, the design was strongest in this than everyone else. Like I say, things like the contrast between the absolute stark, brutal, rationalist set with the weird angles and this really human set that just looks like a regular, loving living room. It's those little details that they bump it up for me, even without excellent acting. So I think it's a very comfortable 11. I put a poll up, and I think I probably have to bring the poll to a close now. So I hope people did okay with that. I'm looking at it now. I mean, this is pretty solid, guys. It's a pretty solid victory for the Obsolete Man. I should have maybe let this run a bit earlier. But yeah, I'm not surprised. Did you?
I went the fever. It was my introduction, and I was like, yeah.
You just wanted to get your dollar back, man.
Exactly. I just needed the dollar back. Yeah. It owes me. It stole it from me.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Ah, darn it. We were ambitious, but frankly, okay, yes, we've overshot by 20 minutes, but you know what? We had to cover this one. I am so glad we covered The Obsolete Man. Forgive me for efficiency. I will close things up fairly quickly. So I'll just thank Murgoot. I'll thank TCG. Anything else you would like to shill TCG? There's a video I'm trying to get at right now.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said,
for you.
like I said at the start of the video, start of the stream, if you're not subscribed to me, what are you doing? Because don't just take my word for it. Take Representative Eric Swalwell's word for it. Subscribe to that
Oh, you
crime
mean
guy, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever you want to call him. I tell you what, he's a TCG fan. He's a friend of mine.
He's also a Chinese spy too. So.
Well, you know, funnily enough, I have a TikTok
you,
account.
You get on TikTok and it's all
Get on
downhill, isn't it? No,
I know,
brilliant.
see?
Do
I'm just
check
saying-
out TCG's videos.
I'm just saying, I did sign up to TikTok today, and Eric Swalwell is there shilling my channel. They're definitely spying on me.
Murgoot, anything from yourself?
I just post on Twitter inveterately. I mean, a lot of it's science stuff. A lot of it is geopolitical and current events. But I'm kind of scattered right now. I'm kind of posting everything.
Some of it is just funny, you know, and we appreciate it.
I try. I've got to laugh sometime.
Yeah, 70 Sue, I'm really glad you liked it. If there's one thing I'm going to say for this series, it's just it was cozy. Even when it was scary, it was just kind of cozy. When I saw you post up here that there was a 24-hour marathon, it's like, oh man, I would totally go for just binging a whole load of Twilight Zone episodes. I would completely go for that. Mima, you got a shill? Drop your shill in quick, and I don't know if you're joking, but I'll do my own shilling quickly. Because I had a whole bunch of videos out recently. This is the first stream of the year, but if you've been keeping an eye on the channel, you know I have been extremely busy. I put out the Christmas special, which contained horrors no man should see. And I also put out an hour and 40... Yes, I mean the dog pill song. And I also put out my 1 hour, 40-minute special on the Craft Legacy, the absolutely abominable woke cash-in, pretending to be a sequel to a really nice movie from 1995, which contains things like this, which I don't know if I should have put it in or not, but it is. So...
Can I just say, guys, again, if you haven't watched this particular episode of horror shows, do go and watch it. I would say that it is probably one of, if not my favorite video that she's put out so far. It's
thank you very kindly.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it.
I had a lot of fun with it. I got to go Mauler mode, and it was really nice that actually people were there. They were there for me going quite in depth on a terrible movie. People were there patient with me, just going very, very in detail on why just lines did not make sense, did not refer to each other, and then slipping in weird jokes like this. So I feel very lucky that y'all like what I do when I go on my very weird tangents with stuff like this. So yeah, check out the craft video. And I think that will be it, except for horror homework, which I didn't say yet. Okay, last thing tonight, folks. Thank you so much for being here. Horror homework for next week is an absolute treat. It is Dead of Night from 1945. I absolutely love it. It's so good. And we've got Harry from Lotus Eaters is coming back on for it. He's never seen it. He sticks mostly to modern stuff. So him, I really want to see how he feels about something from 1945. Oh, and yes, if you want to see lots of Gatsby, he is extensively in the Craft Legacy video because he wouldn't shut up while I was filming. So I just scooped him, and he's in the video.
Horror Show. I think what Alabastard is actually trying to say is get some bloody Gatsby plushie merch out.
Get some merch. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Merch.
Oh gosh.
Merch.
All right, folks. You've got your horror homework. It is Dead of Night, 1945. It is genuinely brilliant. I love it so much. You are going to like it. I am going to once again thank Murgoot and TCG. You guys are absolute stars.
Pleasure as always. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
No worries, no worries. And chat, I've loved your responses as well. There's a lot of, it's been really nice seeing that a whole load of people people remember Twilight Zone fresh. They remember it on reruns, and there's a whole bunch of people who weren't even alive when it was running, all loving this show, and it's really cute. All right, I'm rambling. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to sign off as I always do. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.
#show gang.